It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 67 of the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. A very different one for you today. We have a betting preview of the UFC 256 with Ryan, as always, Smart Sports Trader. How are you, mate?
Good, buddy. Yourself?
Very good, mate. We have a very special guest today, someone we don't get on as much as we want. His name is, you might have heard of it before, his name's Jonas Gjelstad, Pro Sports Bettor, Pro Poker player, and also, most importantly, Trademate Sports co-founder. How are you, Jonas? Good to have you back, mate.
I'm good. Good to be back. Been a busy week.
Yeah. How's life?
It's pretty good. Being locked up in a house in London with restaurants just opening, and yeah, life is smiling. Been through the delivery menu, so considering changing place now, changing address. We got some new restaurants around if the COVID keeps extending.
Yeah. Oh, nice, mate. Nice, mate. Well, we'll hope it clears up for you guys in the UK. It's beautiful over here in Australia, so hate to rub it in, but I've got absolutely no restrictions at all.
Must be nice.
It's very nice. So yeah, I guess for once we're actually just gonna, we used to do this back in the day, Ryan, just me and you, but we're actually just gonna, instead of talking EPL and all this European football crap, we're just gonna talk strictly UFC, get right into this 256 card, second last card for the year. So it should be lots of fun. We'll kick it off with a quiz question. It's a bit of an easy one if you guys have been doing your research on the main event. Figueiredo, Davidson Figueiredo, is on a 5-fight win streak. Who was the first man he beat on that win streak? And we'll get to that at the end of the podcast. I'd be quite disappointed. I think it'll show. If you guys don't get this one right, it just shows you haven't been doing your research on Figueiredo. So trying to catch you out nice and early. Ryan, mate, I'll start with you. We'll obviously go through all the fights on the main card, mate, but are there any ones in the prelims that are interesting you at this point?
Yeah, I was looking at a few, but then obviously this card's been kind of ravaged by COVID. Especially the prelim fights, so a few of them have been called off, but the one that's still on, which I was doing quite a bit of research on today, was the Mackenzie Dern versus Werner Jandiroba fight. So I've got a position on Mackenzie Dern. I backed her this morning on Betfair at 1.58. And I kind of had to think about this fight quite a lot because although Mackenzie Dern, she's got really high jiu-jitsu credentials, she's looked kind of wild and a bit raw since she's been in the UFC. If you look at her early fights, she's on the feet, she's throwing big wild hooks. When she kicks, she tends to miss and fall over and slip, and she just looked very wild, but she got away with it early on in her career because the opposition wasn't as good. But Werner Jandiroba is 16-1. She's decent, but she's not the same athlete as Dern. Like if you look at her, she's a little bit older. She's a bit more plodding. She's got a good top game, and potentially I think she will be able to take Mackenzie Dern down. Potentially, she might be able to stifle in top position and just kind of look to sit there and not really open up too much and pass and put herself in danger. And that could be a potential way that she wins the fight. But just when I look at like Dern's athleticism, she's a better athlete. She's more explosive. She seems like she's got the highest ceiling to me as a fighter, and she's been working with Jason Perillo, who's a really good boxing coach. So that's going to sharpen up her hands. We've seen the work that he's done with like Bisping, and even with Tito Ortiz into his later years. He sharpened up his boxing quite a lot. So yeah, I think the odds. I don't think there's huge value there, but I think she could be a little bit shorter. And I'm happy to back Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, so Dern's at 157 on Sky Bet, I can see. I don't know what she's like on Pinnacle, but I'm seeing Betfair Exchange is 1.5.
Yeah, it's 152 on both Pinnacle and Betfair Exchange, so also been dropping already.
There's a bit of a gap on Betfair, isn't there? Because I got a tiny amount at 159 this morning, and then I got a bit more at 158, so normally with Betfair you can get a little bit above Pinnacle, so I reckon you'd still probably be able to get like 1.57, but obviously we're taping this podcast a few days earlier, so this could change. But I'd be happy to stay at that price.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you looked into the Chase Hooper versus Peter Barrett fight?
I did have a little look over it, and like Chase Hooper seems to be getting a lot of hype, and I think that he's obviously he's a really good jiu-jitsu guy, but we saw in his last fight he was kind of a little bit exposed against I can't remember his name right now, the dude with the afro, bounces
Oliveira,
around.
I think, or something.
Bruce Leroy. They call him Bruce Leroy, but I can't remember his real name. So he got a little bit exposed there now.
Alex Jacare.
That's it, Alex Jacare. I looked at Barrett, and he kind of does look like a lower tier UFC talent. There's nothing that he's spectacular at, but he's very tough. So potentially, if he can stuff the takedowns, it could make this like a closer fight. I wouldn't be jumping on Chase Hooper at current odds, but I've not looked at the sublines yet and the props. So.
The issue I had with Chase Hooper, he was just like Caceres is not like an amazing fighter or stand-up fighter. He's good, but it's not like nothing amazing, and he just like outschooled Chase Hooper, and just by being so tough and having some powerful punches and like outboxing him, Chase wasn't able to get him anywhere close to the ground, or maybe he was on his back a couple of times but couldn't make much of it. Chase Hooper's obviously got a lot of hype. I think he's inexperienced, being this young, and his stand-up game is just not good enough for the UFC, I would say, to be backing him at this price. 450, he got a big chin though. He can take a beating. You saw that against Daniel Tamer, and but I still like 415. I can see on Peter Barrett. I can't see how that's a bad bet. So I like the underdog there for that price. Also, like I said, Chase Hooper's been getting a lot of hype. People will be betting or likes to bet people that's been getting hyped. And for those reasons, I would just go back the underdog, even though the price could easily also increase going into the fight.
Very interesting. I guess Chase Hooper's quite a popular guy, isn't he? I mean, he's one of those, like, it's quite funny. He's got a lot of hype from the likes of Ben Askren, and he's obviously been like on a lot of Ariel Helwani interviews and stuff like that. So he's like kind of that classic case, isn't he, Ryan, of people that, you know, there's never, you know, on their way up at least, when they're when there's a lot of hype around them and they haven't had too much misfortune in their career, you would think there's never going to be value on them much of the time at the moment.
Yeah, it gets a lot of exposure on social media, like you say, like with Ben Askren and stuff, and it's like similar to Sean O'Malley. When you get those guys that are getting a lot of limelight, they tend to be overvalued. So.
Yeah, have you seen some of his videos? It's quite funny with Ben Askren.
yeah, they are good. Yeah.
Did you see the one where he convinced Ariel Helwani that Chase Hooper was his kid in an interview?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you see where he talked to Jorge Masvidal as well and said that Ben Askren was his dad.
It's good shit. But I was going to ask about Mackenzie Dern. Is this her second or third fight since she had a kid?
Fourth, I think. She came back and fought Rebus. I think so. Wow. She fought Rebus and got a bit of a beating, but I think Rebus is a really good fighter. I rate her quite highly. I think she'll be a contender. Then she fought Hannah Cyphers, and then she fought Randa Marcos, and she subbed both of those. So yeah, this will be a fourth fight. And physically, she's pretty good, you know, for somebody that's had a baby. That obviously that can affect your body. Exactly. She looks physically in decent shape.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do you think it's affected her career much?
I mean, I don't know yet. I mean, I suppose we'll see in the future, but it might have had a positive effect, you know. She's might take things a little bit more serious. I don't know. It's one of those, really.
We've been speaking about this, so I live with a couple of other poker players, and we discussed this kind of things. And what we think is like having a child is a negative impact overall. It's just it could obviously go both ways. But many times you can see they're more thinking about, or at least it seems like they're thinking more about their child or well-being, and maybe not taking as much risks as they're used to. So I think in overall it has a negative impact, but I could be a wrong here, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that.
I think from like a poker perspective, probably, but I'm not sure about fighting. Maybe you'd have less time to train, and obviously put less energy towards it because you've got to take care of a kid. So there is that aspect. But then also, if you were kind of a little bit of like, you're more of a wild man or wild woman earlier on, then sometimes that kid can balance it out. So I'd say it depends on the person.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's for some it could go both way. But I would say just looking at it from with no much info, I would say it usually works against them. But I could be wrong. Like there was, I think it was a woman who had like her dog died like before the training camp, and you could see like it affected, like she had a bad fight. Could just be variance. It was this kind of things. So we don't know if this is true or not. But what we've seen also recently is like so many people seems to have bad training camps, like and being open about it. Like Mike Perry, for example, having no corner man, having just doing his own deal, whatever the fuck that is.
I think that's an outlier, though, isn't it? Mike Perry just says whatever the fuck he wants to say.
Who was the other one that they said had a bad training camp?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of like someone like maybe Paul Felder or someone like that who... I don't know, but he came out after and said he didn't train for 3 months, or at least MMA training.
Yeah.
But it's like when Bisping jumped in against Rockhold, though, isn't it? Like he jumped in on 2 weeks' notice, like no training camp off a film set, and knocked him out. So it's it's obviously, but you'd say more than not if you have a shorter training camp, it's probably going to be have a negative effect.
But Jonas, were you in terms of like the pregnancy stuff? Are you talking, or having a kid? Are you talking about from a female perspective or both?
I guess it would affect female more than men, but I'm not sure. Like I said, this is just like we've been just discussing things back and forth, and we don't really know. It's not like I can go and say like, oh, UFC betting, you need to look into this because this actually has a huge impact. This is just random talk we're having, right?
Okay, all right. So, I wasn't sure if you'd done some actual studies, man.
Where's the data?
I sent out some like. Questions to them, but I haven't got enough sample to actually say if it impacts them and how much and all that. I'm still working on the monkey survey there. But yeah, and another fight that I think is interesting that's not on the main event card, or maybe it's on the main card actually. It's Kevin Holland versus Ronaldo Souza.
Yeah, mate, we'll get to that. It's on the main card.
Okay.
Yeah, geez, hold your horses, mate. He's very excited. Look at him go. Let's do a nice little summary on the prelim. So we got Mackenzie Dern. We like Ryan. And what would be like the lowest odds do you reckon you take on that?
Like 155, something like that. I wouldn't go too much lower than current price.
Okay.
Because there's just a question mark that Jandiroba she probably will take it down, and she might be able to hold position, and that's really the only thing I worry about. But yeah, I still take the current odds.
And Jonas, mate, the lowest you would take on Peter Barrett?
Well, I mean, this could swing, so you could probably be looking into getting close to 5 in odds. But I would say 415, like the lower odds you get, the less you should stake. But I would take a little punt on this one at 415 even. All
right, love it, fellas. Great start. Let's move on to the main card. Unless you guys had any more in the prelims.
No.
All right, let's get into it. I'm bloody excited for this fight. I hadn't really watched too much about this Cyril Gane fella, but after watching some of his highlights, he reminds me a lot of Francis Ngannou, and it's quite interesting that he's also French. So there we go. Might get a future absolute blockbuster French main event one day. You never know. So we've got Junior Dos Santos. Playing, Jesus Christ, fighting Cyril Gane. Dos Santos coming into this one on a 3-fight losing streak, losing to Ngannou, Blades and Rosenstrike, and I get the feeling he's being tossed to the wolves again here, being given an absolute beast, you would say, in Gane. I think, firstly, maybe because most people, I would assume, haven't seen too much of Gane. I mean, myself, I just had a quick look at some of his highlights, which are pretty ridiculous. I would highly recommend watching that. But do you have you seen much of this guy before, Ryan? And do you want to give the listeners maybe some kind of background onto what kind of fighter he is?
Yeah, so I've seen some highlights, and he was on the Contender Show, wasn't he, as well? I think he was on the Contender Show anyway. But yeah, he's obviously comes out of France. He's a kickboxer. He's got like a very different style for a heavyweight because he's quite elusive. He like switches stances. He bounces around on his feet back and forth, and he's really quick as well. He fought Tanabosa, and Tanabosa's pretty quick for a heavyweight. They both got good footwork, but he could at least match, or he's probably a little bit faster than Tanabosa. So yeah, he looks like a really good prospect. I think he's one of those upper tier heavyweights, like you say, like in terms of like top level athletes. He's right up there with, like in Gane and Miocic as well.
Yeah, definitely. So the odds for this one, I'm seeing 1.25 best odds you can get for Cyril Gane. So he's a very, very heavy favourite. And then you've got Junior Dos Santos. You can get it like 4.5s, something around there, maybe a little bit lower than that. Maybe you can get a bit more on the exchanges at the moment too. So, yeah, I'll throw over to you, Jonas. What are your thoughts on this one, mate?
Well, the thing is, yeah, Cyril Gane, he's he's a good fighter and a good prospect. But he doesn't have the same kind of experience like Junior Dos Santos has. He hasn't been fighting all like the competition he's been up against. He's nowhere near what Junior has been up against. So, I mean, he's rightly probably a favorite, but I can't get myself to bet him at 125. That's just like,
yeah,
I just can't see it being value. But
I think, I mean, if he's going to win, you would think it would be by KO, TKO, and I'm seeing right now William Hiller at 1.8 by KO or TKO.
Is that
1.8?
Yeah, I mean, it's what can I say? I hate betting those TKOs and these kind of things because for all we know, he's been in the lab working on his game plan is to bring him to the ground. Because there it could be that he's edging so much more than, or at least take so much more risk. If Junior gets in a nice punch at him, he can knock him out. So it could be that the fight is not going to be standing on the ground, but it's going to be actually taken to the ground. I don't actually know. So with this fight, I think I would just stay clear. Probably just look at it, see it how it goes, and be ready to bet some in play.
Yeah, I guess the thing is Dos Santos has a pretty suspect chin at this point in his career, and his wrestling's pretty decent. I have no idea what Gane's wrestling's like, so maybe he would be able to take him to the ground, but you would think with the power that Gane's got that he'd be searching for that knockout. Have you got any thoughts on this one from a betting perspective, Ryan?
Yeah, so I do have two bets. I took JDS earlier this morning. Yesterday I took him at 5 just because it was a big price on the exchange, and I've also seen that you can get him by KO at 6.5. So it's like Jonas said, it's Cyril Gane's he's not really fought like the top level heavyweights. We've not seen him go through any adversity. It is being set up as a showcase fight, but JDS at the end of the day, he does have decent boxing, and it's heavyweights. He can crack, and he could land a big shot. So he has slowed down, and like you say, his chin has deteriorated. But I still think it's worth a little bet. Just because the odds are so big. Like you say, he's coming off 3 KO losses, and Gane's undefeated. He's getting a lot of hype. So when you look at where the value is, it's probably going to be to take like a contrarian view, and that's why I've taken some JDS KO at 6.5. And I think that's if you can get that at Will Hill, I'll have a look. I'll see if I can bring it up for you.
You can get a bet 365 for 6.
See, PokerStars is offering 6.5 just to win, so you also get submission within round 1 to 3. So
yeah, 6.5 with William Hill as well. Yeah,
but is that just a KO or is that win?
No, that's just inside the distance. So
yeah, same bet then.
Very interesting, fellas. I mean, I just get the feeling that surely if Gane just lands something, that Dos Santos' chin won't hold up.
I mean, possibly, but JDS was looking all right in the Rosenstrike fight. If you go back, until he got cracked, he was looking pretty good. His boxing's still pretty crisp. He's still got solid fundamentals, and his heavyweights. We've seen it before, haven't we? Like DC versus Miocic. You just land one big shot, in the heavyweights and it's over. So and JDS still carries power. You know, they always say that's the last thing to go. So for me, it's just worth it because Gane's still, you know, unproven as like a top tier. I mean, he looks phenomenal, and I do think it is being set up to be like a showcase for him. But you know, I still think he's worth opposing in this situation.
How did he look in the Tanabosa fight? How did he get the victory there? Because that's the first fight where he only won by decision and not a finish.
Yeah, so he just outstruck him, mixed things up a little bit. Like I say, he was a bit faster, and Bosa was kind of wary of his power, and obviously he survived, but he was just a better fighter overall, really.
Okay. All right. Any other further comments on this one, Jonas, or should we move on to the next fight?
No, I kind of agree with what was said now. It seems to all make sense, and the price is just for heavyweights. It's one punch basically. So if it was like featherweight, unless it was Figueiredo, I guess I would be backing that side.
Mate, Figueiredo's got heavyweight power, didn't you know? All right. Kevin Holland versus Jacare Souza. Oh, this is a bloody exciting fight. I think I think the next two fights are very similar in terms of you know, classic striker versus grappler fight. It's very interesting. So Holland is undefeated in 2020. He's actually got half a case for Fighter of the Year if he wins this one. I mean, it's a bit of an outsider, but he does. He's got 4 wins this year, looking to make it 5. And obviously by far the biggest fight in his career. Jacare, another aging fighter on a losing streak with losses to both Jan Blachowicz and Jack Hermanson, who we saw last weekend in 2019. But yeah, would you say, Ryan, that this is like your classic striker versus grappler fight?
Probably. I just think as Jacare's got older, he's obviously slowed a little bit now. You could see in his last fight against Blachowicz, he was just trying to implement a heavy wrestling game. But I think in this fight, that's the way to go because Holland has shown some holes in his wrestling. He's been taken down and submitted by Brendan Allen, and he was like getting taken down against Gerald Meerschaert. I remember that fight because I bet on Holland, and I was just like, you know, what are you doing? He just kept engaging in the clinch, getting taken down, switching positions. It was like. It was very frustrating to watch as somebody that bets on Holland, and I do like Holland. You know, he's a good fighter to watch. He's very rangy. He's got really good striking. His jiu-jitsu is decent, but it's not as good as Jacare's. So I think Jacare's got like a clear win path. You know, he's got you know, in terms of like style matches in this division, you know, it's the best style match he's had for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree. You get the feeling that Kevin Holland, if he is going to win, he's going to have to be like very, very switched on for the whole 15 minutes or however long the fight goes, because Jacare really only needs one chance in that first couple of rounds while it's very dry to submit you quite easily, especially someone like Holland who's not proven on the ground.
But,
And
what do you think about Holland's takedown defense, though? You think it's not good enough?
I mean, judging by past fights, it doesn't seem to be.
I watched his fight with his last name's Allen, I think.
Yeah, Brendan Allen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he found it relatively easy, I thought, on the ground with him.
But that's also, you know, he's gained a lot of experience since that time. He's been beating Hernandez, Buckley, Stewart, Ontiveros.
But it's only been 1 year, I think.
Yeah, but it's been, look at all these fights he's been fighting. For example, as of late, he fought late October, late September, early August, mid-May. So it's like, I don't know if that's benefiting him. I think it's helping him a lot by fighting this often. He's 28, so I would say also he's relatively young in UFC. Souza is 41. He's barely been fighting for so long time to put them up as evens. Holland, I don't know how much that's going to take into consideration. Got a 9 inches reach advantage. So standing on the feet, it should really benefit Holland. Holland seems to be very calm and collected when he's in the ring. Maybe a bit too chill. Like, I remember watching the Buckley fight, and it was just like Buckley going mental, and he just seems to be, an older brother with an annoying little brother trying to punch him around him all the time. So to me, I really don't understand why the Holland price is like 195 now. But I see he opened a lot lower, and the prices have been decreasing on Souza. So the question is then, is that syndicates moving the price because it's so cheap to move the price early on in the week, or is it actually smart money being put on Souza? So it's always this kind of questions you ask yourself when you see drastic line movements early on in the week. So
I think just stylistically, it's a tough match for Holland. Like you say, he has been fighting frequently, and he has made improvements in his grappling game. You can see that, but Jacare is like top level jiu-jitsu guy, and even at 41, obviously he's slowed down and stuff, but he's still a strong guy. If you watch him fight Blachowicz, who's a strong light heavyweight, who's holding his own when they were fighting in the clinch a lot in that fight. So I don't think he could have deteriorated a lot within like the last year, but I don't think you'll see a huge drop off. And just that we've seen Holland get submitted before, I just think style wise it's a good fight for Jacare. And I thought the submission prop price was pretty crazy, because I saw earlier on today it was 6.0 with Betfair and Paddy Power Group. So I can't back that because I don't have accounts left with them, but I could get 5 on William Hill. So I think that's a decent bet for me. It's Jacare to win by submission at 5.
Yeah, I can see 5.5 too. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Ryan. I can't see how Holland would have been able to make those steps. Yeah, I know he's had lots of fights, Jonas. I get what you're saying, but I feel like fighters improve with time, and like they improve in training, if that makes sense. Not with fights. Obviously, getting fights, I feel like is great experience, etc. But I mean, I've always kind of favoured the fighter in terms of improving, the ones that maybe only take 2 or 3 fights a year, but then get these like elongated periods of time of like maybe 3-4 months where they can just train and not have to think about or just improve their martial arts, like not actually be trying to focus on their cardio and trying to improve, get ready for a fight and cut weight and all these kind of things. I don't know if you agree with that, but I just feel like I feel like he'd have a better chance of improving Holland if it was like over 2-3 years on his takedown defense, and he was taking less fights.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I completely agree. I think it's just you realize there's very few that you can see that the older they get, they still are able to be in the game. Also, how little Souza has been fighting the past couple of years. I don't know if that's his last fight was over a year ago, but you can see the 2 fights that he was fighting in 2019. He lost to Blachowicz and Hermansson both by decision. I mean, this guy can take a beating, and I don't know when he was last knocked out or lost to inside Whittaker. I can, from what I see here now, Whittaker 2017.
The Reaper.
So it's gonna be tough to stop him. In my mind, I think if I were to bet, I'd probably go by Kevin Holland decision. But I can agree with you. Like Souza by submission can be a good bet. What was the price you said you could get?
I think 5.5 was the best if you can get on with Betfair and Paddy Power, and then Will Hill had it at 5. So
I see. PokerStars has Souza by submission at 7.
What the fuck? What are PokerStars on?
I'll have to get my auntie to open an account, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be I can't say I disagree with what you're saying and the logic there, but if I were to bet it, I think I would go by Holland decision. Because you can also see, I don't think he's going to be able to KO him. I don't think he's going to be able to submit him. But I do think he can, if he can stop his takedown, he can win it by points.
Yeah. Oh, this is terrific. Love a bit of disagreement on the podcast. So
yeah, well, we agree, but it could be value on both sides by different outcomes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I can see that. I mean, it depends. You feel like the fight's going to go one way, and it's either like, it's going to stay on the feet and Holland will just piece him up, or Jacare will take it to the ground, and you would think that he should be able to finish it by there. So it's going to look pretty valuable either way, you would think.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see.
Love it. I'm looking forward to that one. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is, I'm just getting onto odds checking now, is Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev. I think that's how you pronounce it. Renato made a pretty decent run, I would say, for the title shot back in 2018, but that was very much halted by the losses to Jose Aldo and the Korean Zombie. That was in 2019. And yeah, you kind of get the feeling he needs to win here, or else, you know, his time in the UFC or just, you know, his run to the title could be basically all and done. And then for those who don't know, Fiziev is a Kyrgyzstani fighter out of Tiger Muay Thai. Have you watched much of this guy before, Jonas? Do you maybe want to give us a little bit of a background about Fiziev?
I don't really have too much. I don't remember too much of him, but I can just see that. I mean, I've been watching all the UFC fights for the past two years, but I don't remember this guy too well. I see most of his wins by decision, and if he's winning, so it's. I mean, it doesn't seem like the most entertaining fighter, but like I said, my Kano guy seems to be declining. This guy seems to get the job done. Kyrgyzstani, they know how to fight out there. I mean, the only thing that I like when you see Dagestan, Kyrgyzstan, and Georgia, you don't want to bet against any of those fighters, or rarely at least.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, have you watched much of him before? Because I watched a bit of tape on him yesterday, and I would disagree, Jonas. He's a very entertaining fighter.
Yeah, he's a good fighter. He comes from a Muay Thai background. I think he's had something like over 200 Muay Thai fights. So he's very skilled in the stand-up. And he's looked in his last two fights. Well, in his last fight, he looked like he really come into his own. Like he fought Mark Dicasey. And he just really put everything together really well. He was landing kicks. He looked confident. He looked like he had the gas tank to go 3 rounds. I just really like his game. You know, he's short and stocky as well, so he's got a body type where it's going to be difficult to take him down, especially if you look at like Moicano, who's quite long, tall and lanky. And with his striking background, he can kind of negate some of the best things that Moicano does stand-up wise. So Moicano's got a really good jab, but with Fiziev, he always keeps his head off the centre line. He's got really good movement, and he can rip hooks as well. And then another thing that he does really well is that he's got really good leg kicks as well. And Moicano's really heavy on that lead leg because he likes to use like the front hand, like kind of Conor McGregor style. He leans heavily on that front leg to jab and come through with his straight. So I really like Fiziev in this fight. I backed him at 1.78 on Betfair a few days ago. So that's come in since. So I imagine kind of people are seeing the same thing. Moicano probably will have a grappling advantage if he can get it there, but I think that from what I've seen, he's going to struggle to get it there. So I think that Fiziev, I think it's a pretty good fight for him. I think he'll probably chop up that lead leg, and I think he'll be the guy that's landing the harder shots. And and it's at 155 as well. So it's Moicano had been at 145 before, and he's stepping up again. So it's I don't think, by the looks of Fiziev, that he'd make 145. So I think he's probably going to be the stronger fighter as well.
Yeah, no, you would think so too. So I can see here you can get him at 1.73 on Betway. Maybe on the exchanges you can still get 1.7. It's saying on Matchbook. So is there a price where you would say it's probably not worth it?
I'd still take me at 1.7. Did you say on Matchbook? That's a good price if the liquidity is decent.
There he goes. He's already logging into Matchbook right now to place that one. Jonas, mate, from a betting perspective, anything interesting in this fight for you?
I haven't really had time to do the proper or too much research about this fight yet, to be honest, but from what Ryan said, it makes sense. It's you say I've probably improved, or is the better fighter, like you said, with weight also. If guy is leading, he seems to be like a Muay Thai guy, can chop some wood early on and get the job done.
Yeah, I watched some of his Muay Thai fights yesterday, and also I watched the Diakase fight, and it was the Diakase fight was just some of the stuff that Diakase was taking was just, I couldn't believe he was still standing. And the reflexes of this Fiziev guy is incredible. Did you see some of the head kicks he dodged from Jacare?
Yeah, some of the lean backs. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Mate, it's matrix shit. It was awesome. So, would you have a look, Ryan, at the method of victory markets, like, you know, Fiziev by decision or Fiziev by finish? Any of those take your interest at all?
I've not really looked, just because I was happy with the money line. Obviously we've seen Moicano get stopped by Aldo and Korean Zombie fairly recently as well. So although Fiziev hasn't been finishing guys, obviously Moicano has shown that his chin's not too sturdy anymore. So let's have a look. So you can get Fiziev TKO 4.33 with the Betfair Paddy Power Group, and TKO for Moicano's 11, but what's decision for Fiziev? The best odds are 3 for Fiziev decision. I'd just take the money line, just because, like I say, I think Fiziev's got the edge in the striking, and we've seen that Moicano can be knocked out and his chin's not sturdy as some others.
Yeah, all right. Should be a very, very entertaining fight, that one. Looking forward to it. But I think the fight of the night, the real main event, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. This is a very, very exciting fight. I think Tony coming off his first loss since 2012, which was to Michael Johnson. So we're talking about a guy who's experiencing something he hasn't done for a very, very long time. And I guess the biggest question for this, I think, for the whole fight, which will determine the outcome of this fight, is how much did the Gaethje fight take out of his career, because he got an absolute beating from Gaethje. Oliveira coming off the biggest win of his career, submitting Kevin Lee in March. He's on a 7-fight win streak. I mean, it's pretty padded though, I would say. Like, some of the wins aren't too impressive. And common theme with Oliveira is he's always gotten to this stage of his career where he's gotten the big fight, and he's always fallen to the likes of, you know, Paul Felder, Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Holloway, Edgar. I'm going back a bit there with Edgar, but yeah, it's kind of been a common theme that as soon as he gets to the top, that he's fallen. Ryan, what are you seeing in this one, mate?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with you every time we've seen Oliveira, have to fight a top level guy. He has seemed to fallen down, and if you look at stylistically what's a bad matchup for Oliveira, it's probably a guy that's durable, it's a guy that's going to pressure you, and it's a guy that's going to be in your face for the whole fight. So on paper, at least, it looks like a terrible matchup for him. And I saw when it opened, you could get Ferguson at 1.7, which I missed that price, and it's come in quite a bit since then. But then there's a few question marks about Ferguson. Obviously, he's he's getting up there in age. I think he's 37 now. He's coming off a hellacious beating. That was one of the worst beatings I've seen. So is that going to have an effect? Probably. And with his style, he's always had a style where he takes shots and is in wars. So it could be the point where this is just a fight where it catches up with him. So it's a difficult one, really, because where the odds are at now, I don't really like either side. And Oliveira's probably going to have an advantage in the grappling as well. He's a very slick submission guy. Ferguson's very good as well, but he tends to... his willpower gets him out of a lot of bad positions, basically. He's a guy that's not going to quit, and he's got good cardio. And I think that early on, Oliveira might be able to catch him with something. So yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on this. And then I watched Dan Hardy break down the fight today. And he seems to heavily favour Oliveira, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if I completely agree with it. So when I've looked at trying to get some value in this fight, I've even thought that Ferguson to win inside the distance is 2.4. And I thought that's fairly decent because, like you say, if the fight goes how we kind of expect it to go, due to what we've seen in the past with these guys, then it will be that Ferguson will break him, and Oliveira will probably look for a way out at the end of round 2, round 3 possibly. Or another potential bet I'd make would be a live bet, and that would be to bet Ferguson after the first round, just because Oliveira's he's a front runner when he's in control, and when he's winning the fight, he's very, very good. But when he faces some adversity, he tends to fold. So I'd kind of like to see how the first round goes, and he might have a good round. You might be able to get Ferguson at 2.0, just because that Ferguson's going to be there. He's going to fight for your money, and Ferguson's not a fighter that's going to fold. So that's kind of the two ways I've looked at the fight.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting one. Jonas, what are your thoughts?
So I think there's like if you ask anyone on the street, like, and this is something I do often, and you ask them, who are you betting, Tony Ferguson at this price or Oliveira at this price? I think 95 out of 100 will say, well, the bet is Ferguson, obviously, and they will put money at Ferguson because everybody knows of him, everybody knows how good he is. Oliveira is I mean, he's not a bad fighter, but I do agree. Good. Like, if you knew Ferguson was in his prime, he was going to give it 100%, which it probably will. I think the price still could have been correct as it is right now, but it's so much uncertainty around Ferguson, and like I say, his age is going up. We don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. For him to be, he was going to fight Khabib, and now ends up fighting Oliveira. It's a big drop, so I don't know if that can take out some motivation from him. What you did see though is he was really, like, Gaethje hit him so bad everyone would have been out like a long time ago. I guess he got the chin that we all talk about.
Incredible.
I do see, like, so for example, I'm just having the PokeStars odds open just because I don't have access to any other prices right now, and I see Oliveira to win in rounds 1 to 3 is 350, whereas the odds of him winning by decision is 6. Like I said, he is a front runner. I do see him winning the first round, and I do see if the fight was 5 rounds, it would benefit Ferguson more. The fact that this is only 3 rounds, I think, like, if Oliveira by decision at 6 is too high to pass on. I do like Ferguson, and I do hope Ferguson will win, but if you look at those prices, I think that's just too good to pass on. And also the fact of how big of a fan favorite Ferguson is, I think the odds on him will be on the lower side.
Yeah,
I guess the bookies will have, like, Ferguson in basically any accumulator on the UFC this week, right? So they are just going to take their margin there.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I just get the feeling like I think this is just a terrible stylistic matchup for Charles Oliveira, like you said earlier, Ryan. And if, let's just say, I don't know what Ferguson's fight was before the Gaethje fight. It might have been, I can't remember who it was, but let's just say that was his last fight, and he's taken a year. Cerrone, yeah. So let's just say after that Cerrone fight, he took a year off, whatever, hasn't fought until now, and you put Oliveira in front of him, the odds would be, I think, like 1.2, 1.3 for Ferguson, something like that. And the only reason I think they've gone up to, you can get like 1.6 now, that's the highest you can go, is just because I don't think they're going like, he's a bad fighter. I think it's just how much damage it took out of him, that one fight with Gaethje. So I still think, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I still think there's value at Ferguson at 1.6. But I agree with you, Ryan, in the sense that it's probably worth waiting till the end of round 1, because if the way that Ferguson should win this fight, he could dominate from the outset, but there's a good chance that Oliveira could dominate that first round, and then you could get something like 2s or 3s or maybe even higher for Ferguson going into that second and third round.
Yeah, I mean, Oliveira to win by decision at 6 does seem pretty high, to be honest. So I wouldn't put anyone off betting that. But like you say, there's a lot of question marks in this fight, so it's going to be a really fun fight to watch. But then I don't know. It's a tough one, isn't it? But I do agree. Pre the Gaethje fight, Ferguson will probably be like between 1.3, 1.4 in this fight. So the fact that he opened at 1.7 was just due to the obviously coming off a loss and coming off a beating.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a tough one.
Do you think?
If you go back to the Gaethje fight, why do you think the fight never went to the ground?
Don't think he could get it there. I think
it didn't seem like he tried hard to get Gaethje into the ground.
No, he didn't really. I think he probably expected to have an advantage on the feet, and then he did go for some leg locks, didn't he? Did he do
he did some
roll? Yeah. So he did late on, but he didn't early on. So I don't know, but there's a difference between the punching power with Gaethje and Oliveira. Like Oliveira's very he's slick and he's got a good Muay Thai game, but he doesn't counter as well as Gaethje, and he doesn't have like that one punch power that Gaethje has. So like, cause Gaethje could hit Ferguson that hard, that would actually stun him and wobble him, and you would see Ferguson back off, which you don't normally see. But Oliveira doesn't really have that one punch power. So I mean, he can obviously land something, but I don't think he'll have the same power to deter like the pressure of Ferguson. And just like we've seen with Oliveira, like he does slow down, and he has been prone to kind of fold in fights. So, but yeah, it should be a good fight.
Yeah, it's going to be entertaining, but it's like I said, it's many ways you can see this outcome, and it's a lot of uncertainty with the whole Ferguson. Like, is it just now because UFC, it's all about being popular by the fans, right? So coming off like if you can get a first round finish, it might get him back to where he was in terms of popularity. I don't know how much that declined when he lost against Gaethje. Could be that it didn't impact that much, but for him to put on a show here, it'd also be something he wants to do. So try to do something spectacular, which might decreases his chances of winning. It's not something I would put off the table. And back to the fight with Gaethje, I don't know if it was due to one of those strikes that stung him early, and that's why he just had to go with a completely different game plan. But it's a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of answers that you can get from the first round to see how this fight goes.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating one. Do you think, Ryan, that Oliveira showed enough in that Kevin Lee fight that he can compete with like the top 5? Because in the past he's failed every time.
I mean, it did look good. Like, he was pressuring Lee quite a lot. He was eating shots that previously, we'd probably see him go down to. So he's obviously worked on that. He's quite explosive. He comes out with like jumping kicks, flying knees. He'll do like a back elbow, like an upward back elbow. So he's got a lot of tools there. But he did slow down in that Kevin Lee fight. I thought Kevin Lee kind of gave him that choke in the third round. It looked like Kevin Lee was tired as well, but he didn't really fight that choke off. Whereas, Ferguson's not a guy that's going to really give you anything. He's going to fight till his last breath. But yeah, like, I'm not, I can't definitively say either side at the moment is value. Like, we can go around, but
I mean, it's a tough fight to predict, and it's hard to say like, yeah, you're gonna find a 10% edge in this. If anything, like, that's why I said if you want to have a bet on it, I think like getting 6-1 on Oliveira decision is good. That's the only one I see like standing out as something that would tempt me, but it's gonna be tough, and it's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah, I reckon definitely the fight of the night there. All right, we'll go to the main event. Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. Pretty fascinating here. I think this is the quickest turnaround for both champion and contender going into a title fight in the history of the UFC. So I think it's when they actually fight it would have been 3 weeks. So it's pretty fascinating. The winner of this fight, I think if Figueiredo wins, he'll definitely be fighter of the year. But if even if Moreno wins, like, he's a pretty good shout too of becoming fighter of the year. So Moreno's last 3 wins are over, I think, some absolute killers in Cara France, Formiga, Royval, and we all know about Figueiredo's run this year. 2 wins over Benavidez, and then his latest against Perez. I wrote this down, Ryan, because I think it's very interesting. So you liked Perez at his odds 3 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure they were at basically the exact same odds as Brandon Moreno is right now, around that like 3.5-ish kind of mark. And most people are saying they think Moreno's a tougher opponent than Perez was a couple of weeks ago, and they're at the same odds. So what are your thoughts on this one?
So the kind of different fighters, Moreno and Perez, I think Perez has had a few more physical like attributes. He's a bit quicker, he's a bit stronger, he's got the wrestling. But I do like Moreno. He's just really scrappy. He's a guy that'll fight and fight and fight. We've seen him go 5 rounds, like he fought Sergio Pettis in Mexico. That was at high altitude, and he fought him for 5 rounds, and he did really well. And with Figueiredo, he's a guy that throws with power. Everything's very powerful, takedowns, punches, guillotines. When he's squeezing his guillotines, he's exerting a ton of effort when he's doing that. So it could get interesting if Moreno can survive the first 2 rounds. I think this could be a really interesting fight. So I've taken Moreno to win by decision with Bet365 at 8. So I thought that those are really big odds. And I just think if if Moreno can survive early, and Moreno himself has never been stopped. He's never fought a power puncher like Figueiredo, because really nobody at flyweight has until they fight Figueiredo. But with Figueiredo coming off all these wins as well, it's like Jonas said, that's kind of especially KO wins and finishes, those fights tend to get overvalued more, because when it's a finish, people see it as definitive. This guy's just killing people, and they tend to get the recreational money. So I like that Moreno decision line, and you could probably get like 3.8 on the exchanges, I think, as well for Moreno money line. But decision. That's what I like.
Yeah, you can get 9s at Paddy Power too.
9s. Wow.
Yeah.
Same of stars.
Fucking stars.
Mate,
can you get me an account at Focus? I don't think they're available in Australia.
You can move to New Zealand, mate. The thing about Figueiredo as of late, it just seems to be, skyrocketing in confidence. He's shown with Perez that he can also take him to the ground in what seemed to be a bad position for Figueiredo, and a tough 2 minutes to start the fight. Kind of reminded me of the Gage Khabib fight, where Khabib was struggling in the first round. He was hurt, and then just once he got him to the ground, he just choked him out. So Figueiredo probably got more tricks up his sleeve now. So it's like this. It's a really high price for Moreno, who is a good fighter. I think if I'm betting Figueiredo, I do expect him to be winning inside a distance, and it could be in one of the early rounds. I see, just because I have stars open, I see Figueiredo inside rounds 1 to 5 is 1.8. I don't see how that's a bad bet. It could easily be, but I don't see it being at least very bad. Moreno to win in round 1 to 5, 5.75. Nobody really knows how much of a chin Figueiredo has. Moreno got some badass power also, but like you said, it's more likely to. I like what you said with Moreno decision, but I also can't see how some of these odds on Figueiredo they're tempting. Even if it's just like Figueiredo round 1 is 4, you can probably get much more elsewhere. I think it's just gonna try to just go for it in the first round and not pace himself this much, relying on confidence. But I could be wrong. And but you could see these things like with Sean O'Malley before he got injured too, right? Nobody's really seen this kind of power in that weight class, and he just finished every fighter in round 1, and then he struggled a bit, and then he got injured and obviously lost that fight probably due to the injury. But Figueiredo is a badass in that weight division, and against Perez, I also liked the Perez side. He had one thing also which I think was going to be challenging for Figueiredo, and that's his leg kicks. I mean, it's one of the few. I don't know if it's the only guy who actually won by a knockout with leg kick in his previous fight. So by reducing Figueiredo's movements, obviously that would give him great chance in the later rounds. So I was very disappointed to see him get that guillotine in and win it early on there. But what can I say? It's a lot of variables involved, and there will be variance. I personally, I think I will struggle to not bet Figueiredo inside the distance, and maybe some spices on the first round or first 2 rounds. But I can definitely see it. The longer this fight goes on, it will benefit Moreno more. Even though, there will be blood on the mat in this fight. There will be spilled.
Moreno's Mexican, mate. It has to happen.
And Moreno's never been finished. I just looked up. He's never been finished. So I think that is a very, very interesting point going into this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're not fighting in the weight class where finishes happen most often, though. KO, and if you got a decent ground game, you're putting yourself in some advantage, right? And it's probably never fought anyone that's close to where Figueiredo is this day.
Yeah,
and this is something I've discussed with others also. Is people say, oh yeah, but he's black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. So it's like, oh, he's great on the ground. Yeah, but put him up against Khabib and you see how good he is. Like Khabib is in his own league. And it's probably the same here for the power that Figueiredo has on the ground, if he is able to keep his movement up.
Yeah.
Some of these things, some of these people is just in their own league. But Moreno also is like the chin and the power that he assesses. It's going to be a really tough fight for Figueiredo. So betting Figueiredo at 133, I think is way too low. So I like the Moreno decision. It's going to be interesting to see how much of a chin Figueiredo has with fighting a guy like Moreno and being hurt and fighting 5 rounds hurt. That's I think that's going to be new for him. What's the longest fight he's been fighting?
Who's this, Moreno?
Figueiredo.
Oh,
He's only
Figueiredo.
gone 3 rounds. He's never gone 5.
No.
I agree. I like the nines for decision, and also I'd be like I think maybe you said this too, Ryan. Looking at the live betting, maybe Figueiredo gets a good start but doesn't get the finish.
Yeah.
Like maybe round 3, something like that. You could have a look if he's looking like he's going to slow down. I mean, because like if you look at his loss when he fought Formiga, when he fought Formiga and lost, it was basically because Formiga made him work. He hit takedowns, he tied him out. He took that power away from him. So it's not. It's like we've seen it been done before. So it's there's something there for Moreno to look at and kind of get some like positive influence from.
Yeah.
Moreno has a lot of decision wins. So, like I said, it's important to survive those first rounds. And if you do, it's going to probably be edging out in the later rounds. A guy like Figueiredo is probably not pacing himself too well, even though they're which weight class is this? Flyweight?
Flyweight, yeah.
So they rarely rarely gas completely, as you see in some of those like heavyweight fights. But at the same time, the power will decline, and if the power will decline, Moreno is also going to be edging, like you say.
Yeah.
So I think I would probably go for something first round KO by Figueiredo and Moreno decision.
All right, love it. Good stuff, fellas.
Betting against myself as always.
That's the definition of betting against yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of the, what can I say? What I really don't like is like Figueiredo decision, and the same way I don't like in the previous fight we were speaking about Oliveira to win with inside a distance. I think it's very unlikely. So you just get away instead of having parts of your money on those. You just find the sides you fancy, right?
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. I was just going to say, how angry would you be if Figueiredo came out at the start of the second round and knocked him out in 5 seconds?
Well, there's always the next fight, so move on now. That's the last fight. No. Well, hope the roulette shows up red then on the first spin.
Like Ryan said to me yesterday, mate, maybe Bruce Buffer and John Anna can get in there afterwards if there's a few more fights pulled out. Oh, classic.
I was so tilted with the Hermanson fight. Like in the 4th and 5th round, I was like, oh, I wish it was 7 rounds in this fight. This is just like.
Yeah, no, that would have been good. Or at least it would have been good for me and you, not Ryan. You got that one right.
You went for Bettor?
Yeah, I was on Bettor.
Yeah, no, it's and you saw like I was paying close attention to the odds movement in that fight, and as it seemed like Bettor was edging out the round 4, there was a moment there where you had really good prices on Bettor. You could get like 1.5 with 1 minute left of fourth round, which is really good. Obviously, knowing that Hermanson either needs to get a knockdown or a lot of damage to win the round, and then you still might be free rolling unless you get KO'd in the last round or get a 10-8 round against you. So there was the hope on the team Hermanson was going into 4th round that he was just going to look horrible and we were going to be able to smash him.
Yeah.
Because is he Norwegian or is he Swedish? Which one?
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
take your pick, mate. Take your pick, Jack, mate. Come on.
he's born in Sweden, but he
Alright.
represents Norway.
Trains in Norway.
So it's one of the few Swedes that we highly like in Norway.
Yeah.
Isn't that just an absolute crime, mate?
No, I mean, you can choose where you're born, right? But you can get to your senses as you grow older and realize, like, look, okay, my parents might be from this, but now I'm taking my future origins to Norway to give them some proper quality of life. And we're going to stay there. We're not going to escape after being some years in Norway and go back to Australia. So we have
You're missing me, mate.
Yeah.
Even though you're not even in Norway yourself, mate.
All right. Let's go best bets of the weekend. I'm going to kick things off so no one takes my position. I think Jacare by submission at 5.5 you can get is just an absolute steal I think that's just incredible price. So I'll go Jacare by decision, 5.5, my best bet of the weekend. Ryan, what have you got, mate?
You just took my best bet.
That's why I got in early.
I'll go Moreno decision at 8 or 9. If you can get that 9, I'll take it. But if you can get 8, I think that's a really good price as well.
I love it. Jonas, mate.
All right. I would probably lay the guy you're betting, Jacare, at 5.5 and bet him at 7 myself. That seems like free money. But other than that, I think I'm going to go for a
Can you go on Betfair right now? Can you go on Betfair right now and lay it for me? Can you go and lay it for me now, mate? And I'll meet you there.
I can. We can do an agreement outside of Betfair and settlements, so we get rid of that big. But my bet of the week, I think I would have to go with my instinct and go with Peter Barrett. Chase Super just being he's a great fighter by all means, but the price on Barrett is just too high, in my opinion. So sticking with that. Could also like that. I mean, I also the second pick of the week, if I'm allowed to stick into it, would be Oliveira by decision against Ferguson at 6. So I mean, so if we have 4 bets of the week, we're gonna profit as long as one of them come in.
Exactly.
And if all of them lose, then we're gonna get some nice mail in the. But yeah, I think I like your picks. Like, should be a fun week coming up or fun weekend.
Yeah, I like it. And as I think I heard Ryan say, mate, if we lose all 4, it's obviously just variance.
Yeah. I mean, but imagine then, like, if you scoop all, we have we're looking at a nice accumulator, guys. 4.5 the first bet I gave, 7 on decision, submission. We're looking at the 6 Oliveira, and Moreno decision was 9.
No, Moreno decision was Ryan's.
Yeah, Ryan's.
9
was
with
9.
Focus Stars, wasn't it?
Yeah. So if you put all of them into an accumulator, you're looking at 1,700 and stick a grand on, and all of a sudden you're a millionaire.
Nice.
Just like you, mate, eh?
Okay.
Shut it down.
Well, the only issue is you need to see what the maximum payout is, though, with the different bookies, because most bookies has the maximum payout of like 50k or something on UFC.
Yeah, right. Okay, very interesting. But I think there's one thing we've learned today. Don't listen to any of our betting advice. Just get a PokerStars account if you want to bet UFC, because I think you'll just find value no matter what you bet on there.
They're generous on many things, or very few things, but MMA prices, they're generous.
Yeah, BetVict is another good one.
Straight away, if you've been able to get like a few bets on with them.
Me?
Yeah, like do you actually bet with BetStars or PokerStars?
I haven't, but I know of someone who has.
Right, and they've not been limited quickly, no?
No.
No, that's pretty good.
So they seem to be stricter on the in-play betting, though. But pre-game, they seem to be confident in their own pricing. I don't know. I mean, they must have a lot of... if they're profitable on their UFC books, I would be very surprised unless they have a great customer base. So, but I mean, you can also imagine stars, though, they're putting a lot of money into sponsoring UFC, being like one of the main sponsors. So if they're not accepting bets on it and being confident in their pricing, they're kind of like, and snap limiting people who only betting UFC, then it's just a losing project for them, I would assume. Unless they think like most of the people that watches UFC is also a big fan of either poker or casino, but I think they make more money out of their casino users than poker users. So I don't know, or if they just want presence. It's interesting times though. Like if you look at the bookmakers and what's happening around the world now with, for example, Party Poker and Neteller and many other companies now, they're pulling out of all the countries that's not regulated, and the reasoning for that is that they want to, do everything the right way to position themselves the best against the US market. So
Five Dimes did that as well, didn't they? Yeah.
Did they?
I'm sure Five Dimes changed something so that they can get regulation.
Yeah, they're not available in America anymore.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the Five Dimes founder who was killed in Panama? Or
he was abducted, wasn't he? And they tried to get a ransom for Bitcoin, I think, because he's a kind of well known on the 2+2 forums, isn't he? The guy, because he was a bit of a dick, basically. And he ended up getting murdered. Yeah.
Jeez, that's an angry punter. He definitely lost that multi that Jonas just gave out.
Fuck's sake, I hope it's don't stake too much, okay?
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, fellas. You can find Ryan at smartsportstrader.com or smsportstrader on Twitter, and you can find Jonas on Twitter at Jonas Gjelstad, which is Jonas Gjelstad. Anything else you want to promote, Jonas?
Gucci again, mate?
No Gucci this time. For the people in the UK, what do I want to promote? I think I got to stick with my standard thing. If more people can buy this tobacco thing called Captain from Tax-Free Snus online, I think it will greatly be appreciated for the company that's selling snus to people who's not aware of this amazing thing and puts all their nicotine in their body. This is a much better way, and a company like that has helped me out so much in this year with quarantine. So I greatly appreciate that. Tax-free snus online.
One day you're going to promote Trademate, and it's going to be a beautiful day.
You're a much better face outward than I am. You're young, you have no wrinkles, you got an amazing beard, your hairline is perfect. I mean, you do the job.
Not as good as teeth as you, though, mate.
Well, what can I say? Hair for show, teeth for dough.
Jesus Christ.
All right, quiz question to finish up. We've got to get out of here. It's been going a long time. Who was the first man Figueiredo beat on his 5-fight win streak? Jonas, mate, you can go first.
I don't know.
All right, Ryan, you go then.
Pantoja, wasn't it? Or was it Elliot? Yeah.
Yeah, Pantoja. Well done, mate. You didn't do your research again, Jonas. It's very disappointing, mate.
I have it in front of me now, but I thought that would be you gotta ask questions that's not prepared for it, because that's everyone can use Google.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just thought you'd be a better bloke than that, but yeah, just terribly mistaken.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll prepare for that next time.
Yeah. All right, podcast coming next will be EPL preview with George, and we might have a special guest actually for that one too. A new guest on the podcast, so that'll be fun. So that'll be Thursday night live, as always. But other than that, thanks for listening, everyone. Do a quick rate and review of the podcast, and subscribe to us wherever you listen. Subscribe to us on YouTube too. And if you're looking to implement the strategies we talked about today, more so the value betting ones, not the accumulator ones, that's just all rubbish. Start a free week trial with Trademate Sports and start your value betting journey. Cheers, fellas. It's been lots of fun.
See you later.
See ya.